honored to welcome our Honorable Prime Minister of this beautiful, tolerant, diverse and inclusive nation of Canada. I know you are all very excited and eager to hear our Prime Minister, so I won't take too much of your time, but I do want to highlight one aspect of SNMC that goes hand in hand with Canada. SNMC is inclusive, SNMC is diverse, SNMC is tolerant. So without further ado, I will pass it along to our Honorable Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
It's an honor for me to join with you tonight for this gathering, but I really wish I wasn't here tonight. I really wish we weren't reflecting on a terrible terrorist attack that happened 3 days ago in New Zealand, when, like Muslims around the world, people went to Friday prayers and lost loved ones. In the entire Muslim world, entire Muslim communities around the world are feeling worried, feeling perhaps insecure. And the message that I have for you is that Canadians stand with the Muslim community.
Thank you.
Hatred and intolerance and violence have no place in any of our communities. And this community, come here as I look across this beautiful diversity from every corner of the world, is in many cases fleeing the kind of violence, the kind of hatred and division that does hold sway in far too many parts of the world. And coming to countries like Canada or New Zealand or so many Western democracies where there is an understanding of freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, openness to each other, respect for each other, is actually the way to build a better world, and a way that is consistent with the teachings of all the world's religions, from Christianity to Islam, to Judaism, to Buddhism, to what have you. This idea of loving thy neighbor is universal. And yet, in this time right now, time of tremendous change and stress around the world, as technology and globalization puts pressures on individuals and their jobs in ways that makes people looking for easy answers, look for easy solutions. It is far too easy for certain elements of public discourse to contain greater and greater calls to intolerance, to division, and to fear. And I know from having had the opportunity to travel not just to every corner of this great country and spoken with Canadians of every conceivable background, but indeed to travel around the world. I know that everywhere in the world, people want the same things for themselves, for their kids. Good life, good job, an ability to contribute, and mostly a better future for their kids. That is the universal desire that we have. And unfortunately, there is a time of increase, of intolerance, and of attacks. And we need to double down on what we know to be true. That compassion and openness and respect and love is the only way forward for this world.
Thank you.
But it does not mean we will shrug off hatred or intolerance. We must, each of us, dedicate ourselves to ensuring that calls for intolerance, calls for division, stoking up of fear is responded to strongly and immediately and from all of us. It shouldn't just be Muslims standing up against Islamophobia. It should be all of us as Canadians. And as Canadians, we must also be standing up against intolerance in all its forms. Standing up for women's rights. Standing up against anti-black racism. Standing up against anti-Semitism. Standing up against homophobia. We need to understand that respect for each other and love for each other is the only way to move forward. You know, every now and then I hear people call for tolerance. We need more tolerance. And I think there are places in the world where a little more tolerance would be extremely important. But I don't think Canada, or I hope that Canada, isn't one of those places. Because if you think about tolerating someone, it means putting up with them as long as they don't get in your face too much. It means accepting their right to exist, but don't come and bother me. I tolerate you. Well, no. We shouldn't be talking about tolerating each other. We should talk about accepting, embracing, befriending, and yes, loving each other.